Michael speaking. It sounds like I'm answering the phone, but the person who's calling is intuition. And my intuition, my gut feeling is telling me that you might be going through something today. You might be struggling. You might be grieving. Who knows what's going on in your life? But I hope that you're okay. But remember, it's okay not to be okay. I encourage you to take 24 hours or maybe even 48 hours for yourself, for self-care. And please just stay with us. I hope that you always want to stay in the world. I hope that your gut feeling is that you belong in this world.
Absolutely. And you use the word intuition, which we should get smarter in seconds about because that's the theme of today's episode. Intuition is our ability to understand things quickly without having to think too hard about them. It helps guide our decisions based on all of our past experiences and knowledge. It's when people say they have a gut feeling or just know something, they are usually talking about intuition at work. A lot of people feel like they don't have intuition, and sometimes it's a skill that we have to develop, but I think that it's something that's really powerful because it's based on everything that we've learned, everything that we know, and sometimes our body and our minds just tells us that something might work. When you throw anxiety into the mix, it can kind of get off the rails, but we'll get more into that in today's episode.
Perfect. And now we're going to read the bio of our guest. It is a long bio, so that just means you're an incredible person. So are we ready to go?
Let's do it.
Novi Brown is a German and American actor and producer, acclaimed for her role as Sabrina Hollins in Tyler Perry's highly successful series Sistas, one of the longest-running shows featuring a predominantly black female cast. Novi has appeared on NCIS and starred in 5 films, acted in 4 shorts, and regularly hosts the red carpet for the Soul Train Awards and the NAACP Image Awards. In addition to acting, she is also the host of her own astrology talk show, Conversations and Constellations. That's a fun tongue twister. As a bilingual actress with international acclaim, she has traveled to conferences around the world in London, Nigeria, and Dubai to discuss the importance of black representation, and recently filmed A Wesley South African Christmas in Durban, South Africa. Most recently, Novi Brown produced a short film called Drugs Are Fun. Beyond acting and producing, Brown is an advocate for mental health awareness and representation in media, particularly focusing on black women's stories.
Amen.
Woo!
Thank you, friend.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
I appreciate that.
Do you have anything to say to us before we get kicked off, asking you all types of questions and asking you your thoughts about feelings?
I'm ready to do whatever and go wherever you guys want me to go.
Fabulous. So our first questions, we always try to start out with library kid questions. And library kid is anyone who has ever been to the library, also adults, that we all have a library kid inside of us who have, gone to seek out the resources. But library kids, first and foremost, are curious. And our library kid question today for you, Novi, is how did you get inside of my TV?
I absolutely love that question. I still wonder how I got there myself. No, perseverance, hard work, discipline, and a lot of people helping me in the background. I started as a theater major. I did theater as a child, studied with Lee Strasberg when I was about 8 years old in New York City. And my mom just allowed me to kind of explore my interests. And when I turned 17, I committed to being an actor because I wanted to see more people that looked like me on screen. And I just felt because we're visual learners first, if we have the gift of sight, and some of us are not blessed with that, however, visual is a great way that we learn. So I just did not see the truth when it comes to people that look like me. And I wanted to be a part of that change. So I just used my ability to connect with people even if I don't know them. And I think that's something that's so cool about art. You don't have to be in the room to make someone feel a certain way. And I really wanted to explore that. And so I went to college for it, and I did a lot of workshops. I auditioned. I still audition to this day. And I finally got something going for myself, and here I am.
That's amazing.
That's fantastic.
Do you remember the first black woman that you saw on the TV or in film, or were like, ooh, that person looks like me?
I feel in my memory it has to be Pam Grier. She was one of the first people I saw, and she was just badass. She got it done, and the type of roles that she played were very dominant roles, leading roles, kind of gritty. a little dark, but I can visualize and see her. Yes.
Wow. You're now on one of the shows, the longest running show in history with a Black
Praise God.
female-led cast.
Yes.
How have you grown since you've taken that first role?
Well, I want to first say thank you to anybody who watches the show or talks about the show, because it's a big deal for you to take out your 24 hours time to tune in to what we're doing all the time. And what I've learned about myself is that I'm capable of many things. And there is no limit to my imagination and what I want to do. Because maybe in 20 years, I won't be an actor anymore and I'll do something completely different. But at least I got to say I did it. And I followed through on my dream. And, I get to be part of little girls' posters on the wall. And they're okay with having locks or natural hair or being whatever body type that they are, or however they express themselves. So I just want to make more room for people to show up to be themselves, because it allows people to feel safe, and because a lot of us, we make a lot of decisions because of fear.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's definitely true. People can make reactionary decisions because of fear.
Yeah.
Can stop themselves from trying to achieve their dreams because of fear. And you got in your, what was it, a 1997 Pontiac Grand Prix?
Yeah.
And you just drove it all the way across the country to come to Hollywood. And now you're a star,
Yes,
I would like to say that you're always been a star. But fear didn't stop you from doing that. But surely you had fears in the process of deciding to follow your dreams. Can you talk about what your thoughts and feelings were during that moment?
My thoughts and feelings during that, I'm grateful. And I feel in your 20s, you're just extra fearless. You just kind of do whatever you want. And I'm very grateful because I have a mom who explores a lot and does things. I was on an airplane by myself at 6 years old. So it's just been kind of embedded in me to see other places in the world and journey by myself. So I wasn't scared. I didn't have a manager. I didn't have a place to stay. I didn't have an agent. I didn't have anything. I just had my faith. I knew this is the only thing that I was going to go do. I didn't have a plan B.
Wow.
So, and at that age, take it, run with it. Because the older you get, the more you try to talk yourself out of things, because you're surrounded by people who have talked themselves out of things. So now you think it's normal to continue going on that pathway when we were born to do that specific thing we had envisioned in our mind, and that vision is maybe a seed. It might not be the entire garden of what you're trying to grow, but you have to at least harvest the seed and look after it and prune it, and you gotta put some work into it. And then when it starts blooming, you'll say, oh my gosh, it's a willow tree, it's not a palm tree. And then you have something completely different and you say, but it started with this idea. So that's where you have to continue surrounding yourself with people who are fearless. That's why I surround myself with people like Blair.
Yeah.
Thank you, friends.
It's so great to be fearless, but there are so many things that we as human beings are so afraid of. We're afraid of just life, just existing all on its own. You're a producer and an actress, but amongst all those incredible things, what do you do to prioritize your mental health? What do you do when you're experiencing anxiety, worry, stress, depression, even while just trying to be whatever version of you is like your perfect version that you're trying to be?
I cry. I allow myself to feel all my emotions. I feel I'm blessed that my soul chose to be an actor specifically, because I have to engage with my feelings, or else I'm not going to be good at what I do, and I won't be able to grow. So I don't get to run away from the rage or the disappointment, the guilt or the shame, the embarrassment, the joy, the indifference. I don't get to disengage with that. I actually have to be with it, with down to go as far as I can go. And I've been to many rock bottoms, many versions of rock bottom. And it's not like, I want to feel like crap. No, I don't want to feel that way. But I enjoy allowing myself to navigate those spaces without losing the goal. I feel a lot of people do disengage with their emotions and then they blow up and they lose it. And that's where the subsequent anxiety, depression, and then all the other things start being a domino effect, because they are numbing themselves to so many things. Man, that person pissed you off. It's okay to engage with that, and that little bit of anger, that little bit of annoyance or irritation, so that you can be properly informed about your triggers, properly informed about the type of things that you are still not cool with, you know? So I'm very, very grateful that I have this experience, that I get to be this way. And my favorite thing also is to say for my mental health, I don't know, I just feel this way, okay? Leave me alone. And it doesn't have to be an answer. I feel like people want to know. No, I'm irritated, that's it. I'm pissed off. I woke up today, I'm mad. Why? Yesterday you had a great day? I don't know. I'll figure it out later. Because sometimes when you were talking about intuition, you feel things before it even happens. You know, you don't even realize it. I was driving the other day. I was coming off downtown and I was driving like regular speed coming off the highway, but I said, I should slow down in my head, you know? Yeah. I don't know why I said that, but I said, okay, let me slow down. I slowed down. Some man started walking in the middle of the street, the two cars, but I said, yes, that's it. I was so in it. I was like, yes, my intuition's sharp because I know I'm in it. You know what I'm saying? I felt it and I listened to whatever that was. Sometimes you have a feeling 30 days before something even completely manifests itself. So I'm very, very grateful. I cry, I talk to my friends, I engage with my emotions. You know, I don't necessarily run to substances to cure my feelings. I've outgrown that phase, you know. That's not something that is helpful to my goals and helpful to the type of person that I want to present myself to be. But yeah, and then absolutely at my community, my friends, like my friends and my family, those are the most important people, you know, to me, because they allow me to just figure myself out.
Yeah,
definitely. No, thank you so much for that. I think that's all so very powerful. All of our emotions, all of our feelings, they're always brewing up inside of us, and sometimes we just have to cry them out. Sometimes we have to yell them out. And I love that you said, like, we don't know our emotions all the time, and that's okay. I think we talk to adults, we talk to teens, but we also talk to kids. I was a librarian. I always talk to library kids, and library grown-ups are like, why are you angry? Why are you happy? Why are you sad? Why are you throwing a tantrum? Why are you knocking over all the books off the shelves? Yeah. And sometimes they're just figuring out their own feelings, their own emotions, and they have no idea. And we don't give them enough grace to say, just sit in those feelings. And it's very funny to watch other library kids because they don't ask that question. Mm-hmm. They don't say why about feelings. Mm-hmm. They just will sometimes they'll just hug their fellow library kid. They'll high five them. Sometimes they're rambunctious and they'll punch them, and they're going to say, please don't punch.
Please don't punch me.
What feeling
don't
was
punch
that?
People.
And then we have to restart.
Yeah.
But the best thing is, like you just said, it's okay to not know. I think we need to say sometimes it's okay. So thank you.
What do you guys do? Maybe I can add it to my tool belt.
Well, I think having anxiety, you know, I've always see those like viral memes, and sometimes you'll have therapists who say your anxiety is lying to you. Mm-hmm. And I don't really like the idea of myself lying to me. I don't think that's true. I think sometimes my anxiety is very dramatic. Mm-hmm. I think that my anxiety likes to catastrophize. I think that sometimes though, when I'm anxious, my anxiety isn't telling me a lie. My anxiety is telling me the worst case scenario, and that worst case scenario might not happen, probably won't happen. But in other cases, my anxiety can like help me put up guardrails. Like I always think about it, like, you know, when you go bowling, you're good at bowling, but are you good at bowling, Michael?
I'm terrible. I need gutters.
I'm also terrible at bowling, so I usually put the guards up. And so sometimes I need to like think about my anxiety. The anxiety is the bowling ball. My emotions is you know the pins, but I need little guardrails so that way I can like, or the pins are the problem, and I need to direct my action and my focus through the bowling ball with those guardrails up. And sometimes the anxiety can be those guardrails. Like I remember when I first became a content creator and started doing Smarter in Seconds, my biggest fear was that people wouldn't like the show or they wouldn't like Smarter in Seconds. And I realized eventually I can't control that. So a huge part of what I do is try to do self-talk. You know, my intuition is telling me, oh, I'm afraid of that. That actually comes from me being bullied and like how I grew up. Yeah. But if people don't like it, I can't control that. What I can control is it accurate? Is it entertaining? I think it's entertaining.
Very much so.
Is it colorful? Is it engaging? And is it accurate became the new benchmark. Because if people don't like it, I can't control that. But at least the information is there, right? Yeah. And so I started adding sources and citations. And another big fear I had becoming an influencer was I don't want to be considered a sellout. Right. So, okay, that's actually a good fear. Yeah. Sometimes the anxiety might tell you, oh, you are a sellout, but you have to like really check and be like, okay, is that even true? And like, what would it be if I was a sellout? Then I had to figure out, okay, well, that would be me working with companies and partnerships that I don't believe in. Yeah. So sometimes like, I don't think that my anxiety lies to me. I think my anxiety is dramatic, and that's okay because I'm dramatic too.
Yeah.
But it helps me kind of focus things and talking things out with myself, with my partner. Sometimes I'll call and FaceTime you, or I'll call Michael, and just really kind of get a new baseline and realize, okay, whatever's happening on the internet, what's ever happening, you know, sometimes it can feel like a pinball machine in my mind. Let me just take a step out of it, talk to somebody who isn't even going through the same situation, and just chill and not have to feel like I have to entertain or engage anyone.
Right.
And that is so helpful to me, because otherwise I can just start spiraling.
Right.
Yes. I think I'm always trying new things. I don't know if you're a fan of Marvel. I love all the Marvel
Really
movies,
like
all
Marvel,
the superheroes.
yes.
I love, and I forget which movie it is, but the Incredible Hulk or Bruce Banner says like, oh, like they're like, what's your secret? He's like, I'm angry all the time. That's my secret. For me, I'm like, I'm anxious all the time. I always have anxiety. I'm always going and going. I think for me, it's just always trying new things. Is doing what you just said. Is asking people, what do you do for your mental health? And it's trying out those various things. For me, I'm Black and I'm Mexican, two cultures that historically have not really recognized that mental health is a real thing. I wasn't raised with mental health being very real. A lot of times it was, if you're mentally ill, you have schizophrenia. You're going to be institutionalized. So I didn't talk about it. So ever since I started going to a therapist, going to a psychiatrist, I just talk about it all the time. I talk about so much that sometimes my friends will see me and they're like, Michael, I don't want to talk about mental health today. I just want to talk about these things. And I also cry it out. I have no shame. I think librarian hack. That's why there's so many shelves in libraries. We're in a library right now. You can hide behind the shelves and have a good cry and go back to your business. I do a lot of grounding techniques. I will do the superhero pose. I have a panic attack almost every time I go in a plane. So I'm always sitting in the seats just like that. I'll do the grounding technique just like that, which looks very intimidating when you do that, but really
How does this work?
You're hugging yourself. So essentially your brain thinks that you're holding on to you, and it basically makes your brain focus.
Cocooning
onto
yourself,
exactly,
like in the womb.
like you're putting on a blanket.
Yeah.
That gives me a great idea for what today's episode could be brought to us by. So Michael and I, we've self-funded this podcast, and we worked with Ninth Planet Audio directly to make it possible. And it's not brought to us by sponsors, but instead brought to us by acts of self-care. And I think today's act of self-care, Michael, you just gave me the idea for it. Giving yourself a hug.
Yes.
So whether you can reach around, you're flexible like that, or you can just hug your elbows, a hand hug, a leg cross, whatever is the most accommodating and comfortable for you, give yourself a hug. I think that's so important. I didn't realize the importance of self-touch and like self-comforting until I started learning from Susanna Barkataki, who's an amazing yoga unity activist. And I really learned, like, as we were doing yoga practice together, that once you start touching yourself and massaging yourself, whether that's to put lotion on in the day or to wash your face, it becomes kind of like a ritual, and there's a lot of self-healing that we have. So if you're listening to this or you're watching this, I invite you to give yourself a hug.
Hug yourself.
Look it out.
The best one.
So I think, what you're saying, Michael, about kind of the environment that you're in can dictate so much of how you view mental health or view the world, or, what careers you might be able to have. Both my parents work in mental health actually here in Altadena, and it's kind of hard to be up here in Altadena. We're at the Altadena Library, and I hadn't driven up here before since the fires, except for to come film this, and I had to kind of get my body into the grounding position. My parents talked about mental health so much. They're kind of like you and how I've become, which is like, mental health. Let's talk about mental health all the time. How are you doing? How was school? What do you mean by this? Or if I would say, how are you doing? And they'd say good. They'd be like, but how are you really? And I'd be like, Mommy, I just want to eat an apple and some peanut butter and, do my math homework. I never want to do my math. I never wanted to do my math homework. That was a lie. But I think that the environment that we're in can change things. And, a lot of us are not around folks who have had the ability or opportunity to follow their dreams. And I think that, you've talked to me about your mom and how she just decided to move to Germany. And that's why you were, you grew up there. How did you learn to follow your dreams? And what do you think other people can learn from you and how you have followed your dreams?
I pray, whoever listens to this, I just pray that you have at least one person in your corner. It's really, really vital. You can do it alone, of course. Anything is possible. But one person who just relentlessly believes in you, that's my mom. I've never had limitations. I've never had other things. There was never another conversation. So I don't know what the other reality looks like. And I never really was around people that said I couldn't do it. They might have said it maybe behind closed doors. But most people don't say stuff to my face because, that's just not, they're too scared or whatever the case may be. But I've never had that. And even while auditioning, I always tell people actors audition more than anybody else. We interview more than any person that you know, because I'm interviewing several times a month, if not 100 times a year, 200 times a year, if we're auditioning, and that's a lot of no's. So rejection means nothing to me. It's just redirection, it's just, or an introduction to somebody. Because in my instance, being an actor, you want to get in front of a casting director about 7 times so they can remember who you are, because they're really looking at a lot of people, and people don't understand. Yes, you are special, honey. You are 1,000% special to your mama, your daddy, your cousin and them and everybody. But to the world, no one knows you yet. So you have to continually reintroduce yourself to so many people. And that's a big part of socializing that I feel that we underestimate and we don't really value what it looks like to keep reintroducing yourself, because each new media outlet, those people don't know who I am. They've never met me. This Thoughts and Feelings family might have never heard of Sistas, might have never heard of anything that I did. So I have to reintroduce myself. And it's part of reaffirming yourself. I feel like God puts it in us to continually reaffirm yourself. So when you're introducing and shaking hands and looking at someone, you're saying, I am, and these are the things that I've sacrificed. And behind the I am, there's the underlying, I sacrificed this. This is what my work ethic looks like. This is how I treat. It says so much about you. Having a self-funded podcast says so much about both of you, Michael and Blair. It says so much about your work ethic, your discipline, your faith, the team here, people who show up, getting the space, right? But you have to continually reintroduce yourself. You have to let media outlets know. And it's a numbers game until you become a person who creates a flow. And then people start hopping on that wave. You want to create a wave for yourself. And that's the fun part of life, is creating the wave. I feel because of social media and because we have access to so many people's waves and ideas, we get inundated and we feel like, oh, that's an 80-foot wave and I'm only a 20-foot wave and I'm not big enough to do these things. That's not how life works. No. Every ocean is for somebody different, So have fun in continually showing up and reaffirming and reintroducing yourself. Because, when you read my resume, sometimes I tend to forget, like, dang, girl, you did a lot of stuff. You did a lot. And it was because you just really have faith you were going to do this. And I kept reaffirming. So praise God. I'm so grateful for my mom. She never put any fear in my heart. She's questioned some of my choices, Sure. When I started studying astrology, she was like, girl, what? What is that about? I said, no, Mom, listen, da-da-da-da. And then I made my show. And when she saw the show, she goes, oh my gosh, I love it. The people love it. And so that's what I feel. And so if you don't have that person, you have to be that person for yourself naturally. And then you have to surround yourself with people who do not put limitations on you. As long as you're not self-harming and you're not hurting yourself or you're not hurting other people, do whatever you want,
Moms are so amazing. I love how supportive moms are. They're so special to us. Shout out to all the moms in the world, all the moms listening, all the moms watching. But they do still think a certain way. As long as they will always love us, but they're still like, but did you have to do that?
Yeah.
I have a lot of tattoos. My mom cried when I got my very first tattoo.
They're beautiful.
Thank you. She has since she likes them. Once I got Arthur Reed's library card tattoo, she was like, okay. But it took maybe 5 years before she stopped crying every time I got a tattoo. But that just is a mom tangent.
Yeah, it's a mom thing.
You talked about mom support, and about redefining yourself, finding yourself. And I've known you for all of 12 hours now.
12 hours now.
But Blair loved you very much. She's always talking about how incredible you are, and you're now producing. And I think there are so many library kids, so many people. I think we all at one time in our life were like, I want to be on camera. I want to be the star. But I'm a person who loves being behind the scenes. I know it's very weird right now, looking at a camera, speaking into a microphone. But there's just something so much fun about being part of the overall project. And what does being a producer mean to you?
It means helping people achieve their dreams, and making space and elevating talent, skill, hard work. At the end of the day, there's so many of us out here, and we're just not being seen, or we're not perhaps given the proper tools to excel at the thing that we are good at. You know, you might be great at singing. I cannot sing. So, you know, but we need to elevate you, and we can elevate my acting, you know, but that's kind of how I feel about the situation. I just love producing because, one, I like being my own boss. I want to be in charge of my own money. I want to be in charge of my own partnerships, the type of art I create, where my portfolio ends up. I want to travel the world, and I want to work with people from all different walks of life. So I'm hoping to produce in places like Africa and places like Asia, and, you know, with the Hispanic community. I don't have limitations, and I don't want limitations. I just want to make really cool stuff. And people say, huh, yeah, she came out with another hit and another hit and another hit. So I just want to have fun.
That's all you could ask for.
Mm-hmm. When you were talking about surrounding yourself with friends who don't put limitations on you, I have a fun story of kind of, you know, how we became friends. And, you know, first of all, when we became friends, this is also how I became friends with Michael. And it's the number one way to become friends with someone is to ask them, hey, do you want to be friends with me?
Truly.
Well, after you introduce yourself and say your name and stuff like that.
Yep.
I think it's number one way to want to be friends, because otherwise you're 3 months into your friendship and you're like really wondering, are we friends? We haven't seen each other in a few days, and it really shows intention. And I really loved that. But I remember one of the first things you told me, you were like, well, what is your goal? Because you're a very goals oriented person. And I told you that my goal was to be a mom. And you were like, okay. And you gave me some advice, and I needed that advice. But you also told me things like, okay, well, you're really involved in politics. You're really involved in these things. You might need to take a step back. And I think that there's so many ways we show care for people. And when I heard that, I was like, wow, what? No one has ever told me this before. I don't think I had a person in my life to that point who was kind of the person to be like, well, if you want to get to this goal that you have. And I think also I hadn't really shared that motherhood was a goal of mine. And you've been so supportive in that. And so you talked about how being a producer means helping people to, you know, achieve their dreams. You also do that in your life with the people who you're friends with, the people that you're not doing business with. And I wonder kind of who was the first person in your life to show up for you in that way, who's not your mom? Because I know it's your mom.
Oh my God, it's only my mom, because it's only been me and her. Like I have a very, you know, I was raised by a single mother, so it's just been us. That's it. It's just been me and my mother. I don't have friends from when I was 3 years old. I don't have friends from when I was 10. I lived in Germany for 6 years of my life, and then I moved to the East Coast, and then I moved back I've moved around a lot. So stability, I had stability through my mother and with the things she gave me, but not through community. And I wasn't, you know, when I was younger, I was close to my cousins, but then that relationship never fortified. So she is my person. She is my inspiration. I sometimes wish I could talk about other people, but that's not my reality. Sometimes you only have one person to rely on, you know, and so she's been that person. And then outside of that, I will say my teachers. I've had some really good teachers along the way. I had one in third grade named Dan. He used to read Ronald Dahl books, you know, like The Big Friendly Giant and Matilda and stuff, and the way he expressed it and how he was reading the book, it just really opened my mind. I saw it as a movie. It was just, that was amazing. I had some excellent teachers. So they were very much fortifying my creative gifts and my writing gifts. I had one, and she passed away, Mrs. Frida. She was great. When I got hit by a motorcycle when I was 12, she'd come to my house and teach me and make sure I was okay. So it's my mother, and it's the teachers along the way. Wow. And then I would say a lot of books. I was a scholastic kid. So it was a lot of the library. You know, there's a lot of silent teachers that some people are raised by. I didn't as a child have the luxury of a lot of people around. And that's one of the reasons why I love being friends with Blair, you know, is she has this amazing family dynamic. Everyone is nurtured in their opinion, you know, whereas in my father's side of the family, it was more, don't say anything. You shouldn't say that. You should be quiet and all of that. So my mother, when she was younger too, she lost her mom when she was young, and so she had to be fostered, and there was a time she suffered some abuse, and so she would not speak. You know, so I don't come from a background of that, but somehow through this one woman, she was able to protect me and make sure I'm able to express myself and still have happiness and joy and prioritize that in my life. She always prioritized my happiness, always. And so that's why I am the way that I am. And so when I meet someone, I'll be like, what makes you happy? You know, what's your purpose? What is the thing? And it's obviously different phases in your life. And when Blair shared that she wanted to be a mother, I know the relationship I have with my mom. I know the relationship she has with her mother. You know, we're not superheroes. We can't do everything all at once. That's just not that. So what does it look like to be smarter in seconds, but mom? Like, what does that look like in reality so you can enjoy motherhood and not struggle through it, because our parents did so much to free us from that struggle. So yeah, I mean, I wish it could be more than that, but shout out to all the silent teachers, all the books I've read, all of the talks I've listened to, you know, Les Brown and you know, Abraham Hicks, and there's just so many other teachers I have in that space. And music has taught me so much, and God has taught me so much. So I have a lot of silent mentors. As I'm sitting here, I realize, like, yeah, I don't have a lot of physical people in my life, but I had a lot of background people.
Yeah, that's a beautiful presence to have. I mean, teachers, books. You mentioned it, James and the Giant Peach.
Yeah,
the big
true.
friendly giant.
Yeah.
Matilda's Miss Honey was probably a good influence
such a
on your
book.
life as well.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Scholastic book. The Scholastic. I love the Scholastic Book Fair. I was homeschooled, so I only ever got to go to one Scholastic Book Fair. Homeschoolers don't have Scholastic Book Fairs, so I don't know how I did it. I think I snuck into school.
That's
to
so
be able to
weird. I
attend.
would think it should be marketed towards y'all specifically, you know?
It should. I mean,
Yeah.
hey, homeschoolers, we're going to start a Scholastic Book Fair trend.
Yeah.
But I know you're really into astrology.
I am.
When you went to the Scholastic Book Fair, did you always gravitate towards astrology books? Or
It was around as a
astrology trinkets?
kid, like, you know, and regular in the magazines and Cosmo, you read it, but I never understood it. But it's been in the background. And no, there's nobody in my life that studied it at the time. But as I was on my acting journey, I became homeless during the time, and I just didn't quite understand what was going on in my life, because I treat people well, and I'm putting quotations because I was always an honor roll kid. I always had a job. I always did the chores. I always followed the rules, you know, whatever those rules are. Yeah. And I still ended up in a messed up position. I still ended up in a position where I was very vulnerable, and I just didn't understand. And then certain relationships I would have with people, it would be very strange, and I wouldn't understand because of how I showed up in my relationships, very open, very vulnerable. And so when I finally did get back with a roof over my head, I had to get 2 jobs, and my mom helped me with a deposit at the time. I didn't have a couch. I didn't have many things. It's just a couple things, which is my laptop and my patio desk chair set. And I saw a video on YouTube, and it said, you know, Scorpio there. I just rolled my eyes. I don't care about that, because they always say Scorpios are vindictive and mean and jealous and all these other things. And I just never felt that way about myself. I said, if somebody wrongs me, I let the universe and God handle it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not lifting a finger. Because the thing is, when somebody does something messed up to you, they want you to be distracted from your goal. Mm-hmm. And the best thing you can do is not listen to any of those things and continue on. So when I saw the video, I just clicked on it. You know, I was cooking in the kitchen. And then I saw another video. It said how to read a birth chart. I was like, what is a birth chart? Clicked on it because I'm curious. Call my mom. What time was I born? Okay, broke it down. I'm a very quick learner, and it looks like a little key map. You know, you see the sun symbol, the moon symbol, the Venus symbol, all that. I looked it up. I typed it in. I said, okay, Taurus moon. That's one of my placements, so Taurus moon. And this stranger said everything about it. I said, no, hold on.
You don't know me.
No. We got to backtrack here. This is weird. So then I studied it for years, 2 years by myself, because I said, there's no way this is a thing. And then one time my mother and I were on a cruise ship, and we were at the bar, and I met these women. I said, give me your birth time. Gave it. I started telling her. She said, who are you? And my mom saw me do it in real time. She was shocked, you know, because I had said something really specific. And then I realized, oh my gosh, everybody has a story. Everybody's timing is their own. That's when I really understood what's for you is for you.
Wow.
That's when I really understood your timing is your timing. You know, why am I not an actor yet? Why not? I've been auditioning for 13 years. I've been in every freaking class. I'm paying all this money. I'm doing everything that I can. What is it? Oh, it's timing. Oh, it's the type of role. Oh, and as a Scorpio, it's very interesting. Specifically, my sign deals with being behind the scenes, and now here I am being a producer. Yeah. So it's very interesting how things start manifesting itself. And then now I use it as a tool for self-help. So, and I didn't mention it earlier, but that's another tool. So if I see something messed up going on, I kind of just, okay. You know, I just look at the charts. I'm like, okay, it's a crazy day today. It's not going to be a good day. Or if I don't get along with someone, I don't drive myself crazy anymore. Good. We just don't have energy that matches, you know, and so that's what I use astrology for. I use it for as a respite. I use it as a map and as a tool. I use it as a way to explain someone's poor attitude, you know. I use it as a way to explain a connection with somebody that I feel so strongly about, and it's just so easy to get along with them. And I use it as a learning tool, especially in the Black community, because there's not a lot of Black astrologers out there that are front facing, that are really bold in how they predict things or their astrological viewpoint, because being a person of color is a different reality. Sure. You know, and the things we deal with is just completely different. There are going to be similarities between signs, but a white male Scorpio and a black female Scorpio are going to have completely different experiences. So it's important for my client base and my students to know that how unique their story is, and how God really did make you one of one.
Yes.
I really like astrology, and particularly how you're talking about it and the intersectionality of it, because sometimes people will kind of turn up their nose around astrology, but it is a belief system. It has a very long history. But what's really interesting is that there hasn't been a period in history, at least that I'm aware of. Now that I said I'm not aware of it, I feel like somebody's going to look it up, but that's okay. That's what learning's about. Where there's been like mass oppression towards people based on their star signs. Like, we kind of see that with Virgos. Shout out to the Virgos out there. Yeah. But, you know, we haven't had a situation of kind of like segregation or mass systemic oppression against people based on their star signs. And I think it's a really beautiful way for us to understand ourselves and each other. And it's kind of a way, as long as we keep it, you know, in that kind of like wholesome, harmless lane of being able to understand ourselves and each other in a way that isn't attached to stereotypes. Like, I'm not going to assume your behavior or what your talents are based on your race or ethnicity, but maybe I can better understand how our birth times and our birth dates might connect. I know our listeners are just, you know, yearning to know what everyone's sign is. So I'm a Scorpio. Yep. My birthday's Halloween. Michael?
I'm an Aquarius. I'm born on February 13th. I actually know what time I was born. I don't have to call my mom. I was born at 3:42 p.m.
I was born at 7:04. So go ahead and do my birth chart, listeners, if you'd like to.
Yes, do her chart. I'm a Scorpio too. I was born November 15th. And Blair and I have a lot in common. Like, I think she's a Taurus rising. I'm a Taurus moon. And so I have a lot of Scorpio, and she has a lot of Scorpio and Taurus. So that's why we get each other. It's not that hard. And I have a Mars in Aquarius. So that's why you and I can have a similar conversation and things of that nature. So it feels good. It explains things, but it is not a crutch. It is not an excuse. It is just, and it's not a state of diagnosis. You know what I'm saying? It's simply a tool. Gotcha. Aquarius is an air sign. Knowing that about your child is like, okay, this person's going to want to communicate, and communication is going to be important to them, and community and communication, associations and friendships. Those are things important to Aquarius. How do we move the collective forward? That is important, right? I'm thinking about the future. So if an Aquarius is raised around a lot of people who are stuck in the past, that's going to be very difficult to live in, you know what I'm saying, when you moved in a different way. And there is something about each sign that plays its part. It plays its part, you know, and Scorpio is a sign of power. It is a sign of influence. It is a sign of change and alchemy. Wow. And that's why when people come around Scorpios, one, we're the collector of secrets. People trust us with a lot.
People trauma dump to me all the time.
All the time.
I thought it was because of the bright colors, but it might.
No.
Maybe the Scorpio's connected.
It's the energy, because there's a trust there, because a lot of Scorpios become researchers and psychologists and detectives. We're naturally good at that. And we're also naturally good at sussing out bull crap. So that's why a lot of people won't approach us that way, you know? Whereas an Aquarius might, depending on the placements, when they grow up, they could feel exiled. They can feel ostracized at some point in their experience because of their forward thinking, because of how they really want to say, okay, it is what it is, though. Does this work for all of us? Yeah. You know, that's Aquarius is like, it doesn't work for the collective, though. Okay. And you could be dealing with people who are more self-centered. So that energy might not do as well. And so I use it as a clarifier and as a reaffirmer, because all I do as a reader is kind of tell you what you already been through, so you know you're not crazy.
Yep. It's big.
So you don't let other people diagnose you, and you don't let other people tell you what to do and when to do it. If you're an Aries, you are a leader. You have to do things your way. You can't move like other people. So you're going to be a little bit more swift. You're going to be a little bit more aggressive than other people. Some people will try to make you feel bad about that. There's nothing wrong with aggression. If the women didn't have aggression, none of us would be here.
Period.
The woman has to, when she's giving birth. She's not all cutesy and demure. She's yelling like a warrior. That's Aries, you know? And if you're a woman and you have that energy in your chart, or that's who you are, you will get challenged by the males in your life. And that will be part of your journey. And so essentially what I do as a reader is I look at your chart, and I give you like the trailer, you know? This is the trailer of Blair's life. XYZ, XYZ, XYZ. These are some of the themes you'll be dealing with. These are some of your gifts. These are some of your challenges. And these are some of the seasons that you'll be going through. Also know the type of people you attract. You know, like if you're a Virgo rising, you have a tendency to attract a lot of people who have a wide range of people, because Pisces is on the other side, and Pisces deals with the spiritual connection and deals with the fantasy realm, but it also deals with people who are lost and people who are, you know, is trying to escape something. So that's a wide range of personalities.
I'm so glad you have the show Conversations and Constellations. Because did I get that in the right order?
Yep.
Oh, fabulous. Because I just feel like there needs to be more conversations about it. It's been such a part of my life growing up. And I think it needs to be more part of the conversation. You clearly know what you're about when it comes to that. Where can we listen in?
Check me out on YouTube, Conversations and Constellations. You can right on the clicker. But I would also love to get a partner to produce it, to be fully a show, so I can get a variety of people to come on.
Nice.
Absolutely. And for those same folks who are listening out, please pick up Thoughts About Feelings for season 2.
Please.
And maybe on the same network, we could be buddies.
That would be great. They can follow each other.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And I would just like to ask you, I think from a library kid's perspective, from a library grown-up perspective, did you ever think that you would get to where you are today?
Yeah. I just didn't know what it would look like exactly. So, yeah, I believe in myself. Hard stop. I believe in anything that I want to get done. And I don't control the how anymore. I just let it happen.
Beautiful.
And that's really wonderful advice. If you're listening in today, I hope that you believe in yourself. And if you don't, I hope you trust yourself. And if you don't trust yourself, I hope you at least respect yourself and start from that neutral place and then work your way up there, because we come into the world as ourselves. We live in the world as ourselves, and we should at least believe in ourselves a little bit. Otherwise, we live our lives waiting for external validation, and that is so fleeting. Yes. When it comes from you, it's organic. You know, sometimes it has to be store-bought in the case of me being on, Live, Laugh, Lexapro.
Live, Laugh, Lexapro.
But ultimately wanting to believe in yourself. So I hope that you can get to a place where you do in the way that Novi does. Thank you, Novi.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much to the Altadena Library Main Branch for hosting us today for Thoughts About Feelings. The Altadena community has been through so much with the Eaton fires, and the Altadena Library is continuing to be a hub for resources, for people to be able to come and learn information. I hope that you follow them online. And if you're in Altadena, I hope that you make sure you have your library card and you enjoy this library. It is in the same beautiful, pristine condition that it was when my dad was a little boy, when I was a little girl, and it will continue to serve us. Next year, they're going to be 100 years old. And so we hope that we continue to preserve this library, our community, and make it a place for everyone to be able to learn and grow together.
We've got some thoughts about feelings. Think of the places we can but we'll see. What do you think? Are you feeling me? Thoughts about feeling